So far we've been building our racing knowledge using all-out rear-wheel drive cars on dry pavement, the perfect conditions. But let's for a bit go past the basics to two special cases, front-wheel drive cars and soaking wet racetracks. How do we adapt to these special situations? Let's start by looking at front-wheel drive and go up to the skid pad.
Hi, I'm Terry Yearwood, and I have the privilege today of talking about a front-drive race car, or front-drive street car. I've been fortunate this year to run in the Firestone Firehawk Endurance Series in a Dodge Shelby, which we won several races in. We found early in the season, though, you had to treat a front-drive car a little differently than a rear-drive. Going back to, or discussing hand position versus right foot position, we were talking about the brake pedal, and we're into a threshold brake mode. If you ask the hands to turn the front tires, you'll begin sliding the front tires. That's why we're beginning to the term of trail braking, where the more you turn your hands, the less you can afford to apply brake pressure so you don't lock the front tires. A common mistake is to leap out of the brakes prematurely, ask the car to turn, and want to go to horsepower simultaneously. That just smokes the front tires. There's no traction available, and the car understeers or power understeers all the way to the exit with no exit speed. However, if we can work out something in the front drive car to make the rear point not smoke the front tires, we can actually dial some steering out of the vehicle, and the less we have to steer, the more the right foot can press on the horsepower. In the case of an autocross or a street car where we need to really turn the vehicle, without any modification, we actually can use the handbrake or the emergency brake. The emergency brake puts a little rear brake bias in the car. The rear begins to slide or point, and the more the rear points, the more power available. In the road race car, we're able to put a little negative camber in the front tires by tucking the front tires in at the top. That helps the front end point. You can also combine that with a little bit of toe out at the rear of the car. Toe out means we take the rear tires and actually point them away from each other. So as you begin to turn the car in with the steering wheel, the rear tires act like a trailer, and they actually begin to point the vehicle in down to the apex. The more the rear can point, the less you have to steer the car, the more power is available. A big plus in a front drive car, especially in an autocross or a racetrack situation, is once you begin to slide the rear, if you have made a mistake and over-rotated the car, the rear end's coming around more than you really like to, you actually can dial in your steering input like a rear drive car, but the big plus here is you can actually begin to squeeze back some power, and the front end will tug itself back straight. Just be sure you aim the tires where you'd like the car to go, and just squeeze back on the power, and the front end can pull itself out of the skid as opposed to a rear drive car. All right, let's recap the front drive car. Number one, be extremely patient with your throttle foot. Don't ask it to power until you've gotten your hand some semblance of straight. Otherwise, you're going to frustrate yourself with power understeer. Secondly, let's fix the car, if possible, where it can help point. In other words, a little bit of toe out at the rear, a little rear brake bias, possibly even just adjusting tire pressures. A little more in the front than you have in the rear can help a car rotate or point without a whole lot of expense. And if you do get the car over-rotated, if the rear end really wants to come around with you, dial your steering correction in, and in the front drive car, you can squeeze back on a bit of power, and the front end can actually begin to tug itself back